Good evening from Tucson, Arizona, the traditional ancestral lands of the O'odham and the Yaqui. Thank you for joining us for Terrain.org's annual Earth Day reading this evening, featuring CMarie Fuhrman, Derek Sheffield, Lauren Camp, and Sean Hill. My name is Simmons Buntin, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and share a few announcements before I introduce the readers this evening. And hey, after the reading, we'll be sure to leave plenty of time for the Q&A. So keep those questions in your pocket or post them in the chat, and we'll get to those after the reading. If your connection becomes slow, you may want to turn off your video. In all cases, please do remain muted, but you're welcome again to post your questions and other positive feedback in chat, and we'll likely open it up for the audio for questions after the reading, assuming you're not too unruly of a crowd. We want slight unruliness here, but not too much. We are recording this reading and we'll make it available from the Terrain.org website as well as our YouTube channel by the end of the weekend, I think. Now, a couple quick announcements. First, the Terrain.org regular submission period for nonfiction and fiction is now open, but it closes in just 3 days. That's April 30th. Meanwhile, our Letter to America and our Terrain Gallery submissions are open year-round. And you can learn more about all of that at terrain.org. Submit, let me just throw that here into the chat. I know you all have that memorized now, but there it is, just in case you need it. And hey, if you know a young writer in or from Washington State, we've just kicked off our Words, Woods, and Wellness series, which features Washington poets up to age 21, spearheaded by Washington State Poet Laureate Derek Sheffield, who, of course, is reading for us this evening. Submissions are open now and close December 31st. That comes with a $200 payment, I believe, for those writers. And there's the link for folks to learn more about that. We're really excited about this series. And I think we're also excited about not just what it is now, and you can see the sticker from Derek up there, but we're also excited about what it might mean for us moving beyond this series nationally, we think, after. So, but we'll see how this goes first. I guess we figure that the Washington kids are a good test case for us on that one. Okay, our 17th annual contest in poetry, nonfiction, and fiction will open on May 1st with a deadline this year of September 7th, which is a late Labor Day this year. And it's a grand prize of $1,000 in publication for each winner, plus $200 in publication for semifinalists, or for finalists, I should say. The cost to enter is $20, and the judges this year are Todd Davis for poetry. Wait, not Todd Davis, Todd Boss for poetry. Oops, I wrote that down wrong, Derek. Todd Boss for poetry, Leah Purpura for nonfiction, and Joe Wilkins for fiction. So good luck in that. And again, that opens May 1st. Very excited about that. We'll post an announcement on our website on May 1st for that too. But there's a link so you can prep your best work for that. Finally, let's announce some very recent winners that some that have been announced and some that have not. So first, the 2026 Sowell Emerging Writers Prize for a nonfiction manuscript has been awarded to Grace Schwenk for her memoir, The Greenhorn. Grace wins $1,000 in publication by Texas Tech University Press, plus a 2-week residency at the Lopez Cottage on the Mackenzie River of Central Oregon, and $1,000 in travel funding for that residency, all courtesy, well, that stuff courtesy of Spring Creek Project at Oregon State University. So we're really excited about that. That opens up for poetry manuscripts in the fall, so keep an eye out for our next one, and that's with the Sowell Collection at Texas Tech University, Terrain.org, and Texas Tech University Press for that Sowell Emerging Writers Prize. And we've gone through, I guess, 1.5 cycles now, so that's pretty exciting. We'll have an excerpt from the fiction winner, I think in maybe the first week of May, actually, pretty soon. We'll have an excerpt on that one, so that's exciting. And finally, for our announcements this evening, Terrain.org's poetry, nonfiction, and fiction editors have just selected our Editors Prize winners. The prize is given annually to writers of color, members of the LGBTQ plus community, women, and/or other marginalized communities whose contributions explore place, particularly in the context of social, environmental, or climate justice. We haven't officially announced our winners yet, but I'm going to let you guys know what they are. We'll be announcing that in early May, but the writers themselves already know too. So since we'll be posting that news soon, I figure, hey, let's announce those winners to this good crew here this evening. So congratulations to Annie Wenstrup for her poems that appear in terrain.org. And I'm just going to, she had two poems. I'm just going to post the link to that here. And if you know Annie, give her a big old hug for us. And congratulations in the nonfiction area to Chris Watkins, whose Letter to America essay is Paddling Through Hell, Florida's Non-Binary Wetlands. So congratulations, Chris. And then Esme Kaplan Kinsey in fiction for their short story, House Plants, which is a really delightful read. Very unique take. So congratulations to all of them. Each of these contributors wins $500 for our Editor's Prize, and that this year is courtesy of Elizabeth Dodd and Kansas State University. Elizabeth, thank you so much for that generous donation to support our, traditionally and maybe not so traditionally marginalized writers. Very excited about that. Let me let some folks in. There we go. Okay. So here we are. Let's turn to tonight's reading, followed by Q&A. But first, let me let one more person in. There we go. I get to do it all this evening. So fun. I'll be posting terrain.org and book links in the chat in support of our readers this evening. So keep an eye out for those. Also, be sure to post your thoughts and questions in chat as we look forward to an engaging conversation following the readings. And finally, thanks again for joining us. So this evening, we'll be reading in this order. CMarie is going to start us off, and then Derek, and then Lauren Camp, and Sean Hill. Each of the readers has about 2.5 hours worth of material, so you'll be here all night, but it's going to be amazing, I assure you. And who could want anything more than spending your Monday evening to Tuesday morning listening to Earth Day related material? Or they'll each read for about 12 minutes. So it's your call. It depends how you respond really for how they do that. So the more excited you are, the shorter they'll read, I bet. Okay. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce CMarie Fuhrman, who is the author of Salmon Weather and I Took You With Me, and the founder of the Confluence Writing Community. A seasonal fire lookout and director of the Elk River Writers Workshop, her work at the seams of Indigenous understanding in Western landscape explores the mirrored persistence of land and body. She is a former Idaho writer in residence and writes from the Salmon River Mountains of Idaho. CMarie, please read to us.
Are there finer words ever spoken than being asked to read to someone? I think not. Thank you, Simmons. Thanks for having me. Thank all of you for coming. Can we give Simmons a round of applause for just, putting all this together, hosting, just the generosity and the work that it takes to run Terrain, which is truly one of the best journals out there. So thank you so much, Simmons, for all you do to make sure that these voices are heard and shared. Thank you. I am going to read a letter to you tonight, and before I do, I wonder if just in the chat you might put something about. I was reading about Earth Day, and I realized that Earth Day is not really a celebration of Earth as much as a celebration of advocacy for Earth, as a way to do things for Earth in honor of Earth. So I was wondering if you did something on the 22nd, was it the 22nd, 23rd, to celebrate, to honor Earth. Will you put in the chat? Perhaps maybe you planted trees, or my partner and I went on a date where we picked up trash alongside the road. I would just love to know what you all did in that way. Thank you, Heather. Native plants. Keep those going in the chat. And I promise I'll read you something. I want to dedicate my reading tonight to Pam Houston, who is just one of the hardest working people I know for this kind of advocacy, and has been such a northern star for me. So tonight's for you, Pam. Thank you for inspiring me to write along these lines. Letter to my fellow survivors, Earth Day, 2026. It is almost daybreak here in the Salmon River Mountains. It's Earth Day, 2026. The sun has brightened the sky to a pale blue, like the neck feathers of a Steller's jay. Soon this homeland of Numipu, Tukadika, Shoshone-Bannock, wolf, larch, Idaho giant, salamander, and salmon will be blanketed in light. But not yet. There are shadows still, places deep in the conifers below that are dark. I am not ready to walk them alone. I am tired this morning, not from lack of sleep. This is a different tired. It's the one I think we are all feeling. It's the tired I see in the faces of my neighbors, coffee steaming and forgotten as they scroll. It's the tired I hear in voices asking, how are you? How are you really? It's in our eyes, the way they search, scanning horizons and headlines, sky and architecture, looking for something that will pull us out of this darkness, looking for something we've been acculturated to seek. Hope. Give us hope, our eyes seem to say. I want to know it'll be okay. I've never been good at hope. This is not a faithless position. I know what I believe. And I think we should agree on what that word, hope, actually means. Because the version of hope that the overculture sells us, the dominant culture that has always valued production and consumption over the natural world, is transactional. It serves as sedation. It is not serving me anymore. It's not serving any of us. Earth Day is not only a celebration, it is a call to protect, to advocate, to bear witness. And tonight we answer that call. Let me tell you about a dog. I met this dog on a walk along the San Juan River near Bluff, Utah. This dog, unlike my own, who ran ahead sniffing and searching, was carved into sandstone and no bigger than my hand, and beside a boulder the size of a child. I want you to see her. I want you to imagine the hands that made her. The person who carved this dog into stone nearly 700 years ago was living through the end of their world. By every definition of apocalypse, this artist was living it. And yet, when I think of her, I don't see a eulogy. Her tail is erect, almost wagging, the head and ears up and perked, listening, as if she has just heard her name. In Western tradition, we are taught that hope was the creature left at the bottom of Pandora's box. We are taught that this was a mercy. But the Greeks, the first people of this myth, didn't see hope as mercy. To them, Elpis, hope, was a deception at worst and a distraction at best. It was the thing that kept you waiting for a savior while all around you, the world burned. I think we are stuck. I have been waiting for the next election to save us, for technology to save us, for the happy ending that will finally let our eyes clear, let the weariness lift. And maybe the dog along the San Juan, maybe she was waiting too, waiting to be seen. But look at her. Tail up, ears forward, listening. She is not waiting to be saved. She is already here, already claiming her place in the stone. She is not a wish. She is a fact. And so, like her, this day must be an act of survivance. Survivance, a word given to us by Anishinaabe scholar Gerald Visner, is a combination of survival and resistance. Survival is just breathing. Survivance is telling a story while you breathe. Survivance is the refusal to be a victim. Survivance is carving a dog into rock when hungry or scared, not a wish for the fear to pass or the hunger to end, but as a claim. Survivance is saying, you can take my safety, you can change the climate, but you cannot take my ability to create. I am still here. We have gathered here because we care, because something in us refuses to look away, because we have loved this place, these waters, these trees, our elders and our children, too much to stay silent. And caring costs something. It exacts a toll. So if you have been marching, writing, protesting, standing up in meetings, standing in the cold, speaking even when your voice trembled, you are likely tired. And maybe you are grieving. I want you to know this. Grief is not a weakness. Grief is love looking at what it is losing. And grief is a river. It flows, it moves, it carries us, it reshapes us into people who know what matters. Grief is not despair. Despair tells us nothing can change. Despair tells us our efforts are too small. Despair tells us the story is already over, and despair is seductive. It can feel like intelligence, like realism, like protection. But despair builds nothing. Grief shows up. Grief organizes. Grief builds. I want to build something with you and our grief. An antidote. Not optimism, not good vibes only, not the toxic positivity that tells us it's not that bad. That's not why we are here tonight. We are not pretending the world is not on fire. We are the ones, after all, who smell the smoke. No, I mean joy as the antidote. Joy is not the absence of grief. Joy is the refusal to let grief have the only voice. Friends, look around you, even tonight, especially tonight. Lakes are holding sky, mountains are holding lakes, the air is breathing through trees. Somewhere nearby, an owl is alive and unconcerned with our worries and our headlines. This place, Earth, is not naive. It has survived fire. It has survived an ice age. It survived flood and drought and human misunderstanding. And still, there is moonlight and robin song, and there's the sharp, clean scent of rain. There is joy. And joy is not a betrayal of the cause. Joy is fuel for the cause, because if we forget what we are fighting for, if we only remember what we are fighting against, we will burn out. Joy is remembering what is worth protecting. Joy makes the fight sustainable. When we gather like this, even briefly, to feel wonder or laughter or relief, we step outside systems that measure our worth by productivity, consumer participation, outrage, and fear. And that kind of joy is ungovernable. It cannot be bought. It cannot be censored. It cannot be extracted. Whenever we come together like this to share joy, it becomes a sovereign space. And from that space, art arises. Songs rise, stories rise, bravery rises, poems rise, solutions rise. Movements are not built on anger alone. They are built with imagination, and imagination requires fuel. Shared joy is fuel. Shared joy reminds us we are makers. We are builders. We are storytellers. We are neighbors living in a living world. When we protect the space of joy, we are protecting the future's ability to be born. So if you are tired, be held. If you are angry, feel that heat. If you are grieving, look at what we have to lose. But promise me this, you will stay where the water flows. And when you feel even the smallest flicker of delight, a child laughing, snow falling, a dog shaking off river water, you will not hesitate to feel joy. Joy is not mere mercifulness. Joy is medicine. And when you write from joy, you are building the archive of the future. You're saying, this exists, this matters, and I love it. But more than an archive, this is a celebration. It's the acknowledgement that we are still here. And not just us, but river is still here, wolf is still here, salmon are still here, click beetles are still here, stone dog is still here, earth is still here. And I'll leave you with my arc. They remember the weather. In the spirit of the plant who has come to live in this house, who has become domesticated, who has learned to root in soil without the roots of others as hands, to grasp beneath dark covers, to drink municipal supply rather than feral rain, who requires, or I'm advised requires, fertilizer once a month, who is thusly scheduled, who has become dependent on a reminder set to water, and whose nearest neighbor is a bepotted immigrant who, if placed outside, would immediately recognize its non-native home and wither, and sometimes withers anyway, which, like too many ailings, I cast the lens on, and with artificial intelligence and light attempt to remedy. In that spirit and knowing, I find that daily I lean more and more closely toward the promise beyond that big bay window. Thank you.
That was wonderful, CMarie. Thank you. And also, I just have a question about your shelves, but I'll get to that after the reading because they seem to defy gravity. Okay. Derek Sheffield is the 8th Poet Laureate of Washington State. He'll be Poet Laureate until 2027. His books include Cascadia, Field Guide, Art, Ecology, Poetry, which I do see behind CMarie. Not for Luck, selected by Mark Doty for the Wheelbarrow Books Poetry Prize. Through the Second Skin, and Dear America, Letters of Hope, Habitat, Defiance, and Democracy. He teaches at Wenatchee Valley College and Western Colorado University, edits poetry for terrain.org, and can often be found in the woods along the eastern slopes of the Cascade Range near Leavenworth, Washington. Derek, my friend, read to us.
Oh, yes. Now I feel how C. Marie felt when you said that. I love that. Yes. Read to us. Thank you. Thank you, C. Marie, for those fighting words. That was so beautiful and smart in how it interrogates in so many ways what it is to be a human being right now on the planet when we know that we are part of these systems that are slowly degrading the living world and yeah, I like that, toxic positivity. That's a helpful word. Thank you. Um, so one of the great things about being poet laureate is you get to be an ambassador for poetry. And so that's what I'm going to put my ambassador hat on today. Okay. And I want to start tonight with a poem from Annie Haven McDonald's new book, Singing Under Snow, which just came out. And she edits poetry with me at terrain.org. And Annie is, you know, um, terrain.org is so important to Annie because not long after I first started helping Simmons with the editing, she started sending us poems. And we were some of her first publications. And now she's ruling the joint. So now she's an editor and anyway, she's just um, such a positive part of my life, and I've been really enjoying this new book of hers, Singing Under Snow, which won the Wheelbarrow Books Poetry Prize, which apparently people are calling the new Yale Younger. I don't know. So this one is called Here Come the Lesbians and Their Dogs. They've paid for hip reconstruction. They've paid for transport from the streets of Baja. Daily they dab grease in his withered blind eye. They kiss each other across the tender pink and brown spotted flesh of her belly, sprawled open. They stop kissing to kiss this. They tell the same stories. And the shepherd ran off for weeks when Maple was a ball of fluff hiding in a cactus down the reservation road to Chaco Canyon. When the Chihuahua, high-stepped her first snow. Should we keep her? They wink again and again. Here they come, kicking up dust in their four-wheel drive trucks, crossing the rutted road to Cliff's Edge, where the Chama snakes up pale canyon cliffs and fields of sage stretch out where dogs can run. They mark their lives in dog deaths. Think of it, sweetheart. If we're lucky, we've got time for one more dog. It's just really lovely to see so many friends, so many people I know, so many people part of the community here. Anita and Andy and Susan and Gail and Jackie and Elizabeth and Holly and Karen and Charles. Todd Davis, you are not here, but you were almost our poetry judge. Okay. Let the record show Todd Davis nearly was our annual poetry judge. And Marianne and Pam, Bob, and Allison. Are you kidding me? Pam, Bob, and Allison are here. So here's another one from another fellow that helps us edit poetry at terrain.org, Jeremy Voigt. His book is called Something to Carry Home and Not Kill. There's a title for Earth Month. The Sea. I must find something forgotten by everyone alive. A red jellyfish, like an asterisk on hard sand. All this life here torn apart, rebuilt. A river now low and crossable. Flat land a year ago, now all driftwood dunes. Now grass and orange mud along the creek. I am listening in the pit of a small dune. Now the smell of wood smoke. Some fish don't swim. Some never stop. Now crab's legs grabbing weeds and air, bodiless, cleaned out by bugs and the small birds. Now a plastic bottle, a piece of rope. The trash vortex floats on in one gyre or another, the size of Texas or Africa. I forget. Now the flock of shorebirds moves in unison to a new thick hive of sand fleas. Now dead sand dollars, calcification of shells, wood dried and air light. A snag storm-tossed onto the tall, wind-blown grass bank. It's a poem called The Sea by Jeremy Voigt, another one of our editors, poetry editors here at terrain.org. And then there's this fella. There's this new book called Satellite. Do you guys know Dave Matthews Band, that song Satellite? I can't sing, but I think of that song every time I think of Simmons's new book of essays. And I'm not going to read one of the essays from the book, but what I did do is I spent some time today going through Simmons's oeuvre. I don't know if you felt me doing that, Simmons, but I was going through his oeuvre, and I found this poem, one of his poems from this book, Bloom, which is out of print. You can't get this, as far as I know, unless you go to Ireland. But you can get this is still bread warm from the oven. But this poem here typifies the kind of generosity and beauty and just really smart thinking about being in place that's in Satellite, essays on fatherhood and home, near and far. And I have to say, Joel Long, you're here tonight. So Janice Ray calls this a field guide to a father's love. I love that little blurb. But Joel, it's wonderful that you're here tonight, because I don't know if you remember, maybe later over a beer, when we have the virtual beers, we can talk about this. But when you and I went to work with Patty Ann Rogers at Yellow Bay on Flathead Lake in Montana that year, in another lifetime, we went skinny dipping with Janice Ray. I don't know if you remember that. Janice, are you on here? I think I hear screaming in the background. No? Okay. So here's Simmons's poem. Whether you are listening or you are reading, there is a poem for you, and it may be like this poem for my wife, who listens to a podcast and sometimes laughs so hard her earbuds drop, and she looks at me and smiles, shares the story of the actress and her monologue, or the man who unwittingly confesses his most embarrassing moment on the radio, before she tucks the tiny white speakers back into her ears. On the other side of the table, I slip back into a book of poems, sometimes nodding or clicking my tongue in agreement before looking away to the shelves across the room. The white antler discovered in a saffron field, or the photographs of my daughters who are asleep now in their rooms. Juliet curled beneath a quilt of flowers, Annalise bent across her black blanket, foot draped over the bed frame, the house quiet, except for those burbling springs of laughter and the murmur of turning pages. As I think of you again, listening or reading, the poem paused by the person you love. Mm. Mm. It was hard to pick out which poems to ambassador tonight, because I've come, part of this poet laureate work has put me in touch with new poets. I just did an event with Kara Briggs, whose Rivers in My Veins is just out, and we had a terrific event in Darrington, Washington, this little town, and she's a recent graduate of IAIA, where Pam teaches, and Annie actually too, McDonald, and then Charles. Oh my God, Goodrich! I just got this in the mail. I just took it out of the envelope at the beginning of this reading tonight. This is beautiful. Not Houses Here. Thank you. And Elizabeth Bradfield's book so far. I just picked this up. Liz and I did an event in this little town called Edison, Washington. But I thought maybe I'll just do a terrain.org editor kind of ambassadorship. Simmons and Annie and Jeremy. And I guess I got to do me now. So let's do me. And I think just one more poem, and then we'll call it good. So this guy named Andy Gottlieb is with us tonight. And it was thanks to him that I met the force known as Simmons Buntin many years ago. Andy put us together. He came back from Asley in Victoria, BC. And he's like, Sheffield, my God, do you know about terrain.org? It's incredible. And this guy, his name is Simmons Buntin. I thought it was like a made up name or something. Who the God's name is named Simmons Buntin? What the hell is that? Anyway, and now here we are, a life later, a lot more gray. And I just have, the best friends. So the other thing about Andy is that he had a poem called Naming the Everglades, this incredible poem. I tried to find your broadside around here, but it's still packed. I haven't quite unpacked yet. You can tell I haven't been able to get any window shades yet. But he had this poem made into a broadside by Jim Kokas. And for years, I'd been like, oh my God, I really want Jim Kokas to do a broadside of one of my poems someday. I hope that happens. And then when this poet laureate thing came around, there was an opportunity to do that. So Andy also introduced me to Jim Kokas, and thank you, Andy. Love you, brother. So this is my last poem. It's just a shorty, and it's I think a good poem for Poetry and Earth Month. It's called "She Gathers Rocks." She gathers rocks wherever she goes. Make that sticks, no leaves, which is to say, heads of flowers and hips. More river than daughter, her arms fill with treasures of every trail. Hold this, she says, to make us, her buckets, her pockets already clack and bristle full. It goes fast, they say, and it was going as they said it, for it's gone into us, counting to 5 times a day, saying, time for bed, time to wake, time to leave. And it's gone into her, quickening eyes and stride that have left us among all the things she once believed she couldn't leave behind. Thank you.
Beautiful, Derek. Thank you. And thanks for sharing the words of others too. That was really wonderful and a surprise, I might say. Let's move now to another poet laureate. Lauren Camp is the author of 9 books, including Is Enough from Texas Review Press in 2026 and In Old Sky from Grand Canyon Conservancy 2024, which grew out of her experience as astronomer in residence at Grand Canyon National Park. She served as the second New Mexico Poet Laureate. Lauren, please read to us.
Ooh, I so love that. Derek, thank you for bringing so many voices into the room. And CMarie, for your faith in the earth and your advocacy and your reminder for joy. Earth Day, Earth Month, Earth Life, it's all important. And I think everyone in this space knows that. When I was at Grand Canyon for a month, I was there with the chosen responsibility to write for people who may never see pristine natural darkness, like there is across and around the Grand Canyon. And I found it deeply inspiring to be there for 28 days, watching the darkness and considering the details of that darkness, whether that was through vision or other senses, even more so other senses. So I wrote a lot, and I thought I would read you a few of the poems from that month. Inner Planets. After all day in the sun blitz, the hectic heat calling for argument and splurging on low spots, I wanted most to be busy with less. After the terraces of light, the spreading iron and groping of it, I walked alone, never to an end, and quietly, yes, sat there and sang the intimate shapes of Earth's history, the fringe above, and the physical flourish of stars. Never to anyone, just my miniature self. It was like being in love with the world as a stranger alive in the slagged dark that made this out of nothing. I was not prepared for the far-off storm with its thrilling embellishments, its thin revolutionary drawings of light, or how, when those ended, the sky was taken to a circumference of thrumming in 100 subtracted overtones. I sat still in that struck concentration, cleaning up the ways I believe. How so often we are given to evidence the dark robs us of hope, and we can't see that it isn't that we need to see. Noble, it climbs through persistence and lets us turn our cold faces up to it, unfit but astonished. The sky does what it must, and it is never the same thing. There is no air in space, no sound the higher you go. I tested myself that month I was at the Grand Canyon with new ways to describe what might have seemed familiar from the day before, the week before, which was a great challenge, a great writing challenge and prompt to myself. I said it this way before, I can't now. Or I've used the term dark, what is this dark? So constantly reevaluating what it was I was surrounded by. This poem is called Small Magellanic Cloud. I was pulled to walk through to the clouds. My sister says, "Aren't you lonely?" I am not. I wiped the constant fog from my glasses. I rummaged a jacket, a pair of wool socks, to keep standing outside in the whirl of decentered truth. A man and buddies walk past, yelling orange anger. I watched them. Behind me, the clouds recover, my own sense of what's gone and gotten ready for us. And no one is looking at all this precision of color, and nothing is owed to us, not even darkness. When I got to the canyon, I thought I would have some weeks before I had to figure out what I was going to write about because, it's kind of hard to take one of the wonders of the world and fit it into a poem, let's say, or even a bunch of poems. But as it turned out, I got there and started to move into the apartment I was staying in, right over the visitor center. And the ranger who was in charge of the astronomer in residence program said to me, "Hey, Lauren, would you write some dispatches for Grand Canyon's social media?" And I said, "What does that mean exactly?" And he said, "Oh, just a little about what you're doing while you're here." And I figured they had made some huge mistake in letting me do this role in the first place because I'm a poet, not an astronomer. And so I figured that ought to be poems. And I don't write nearly as fast as he wanted it, which was Tuesday. And so I learned how to write some very short, hopefully solid poems for them to put on their social media. And this was one of them. It's called Tonight the Sky Breathes. And the title goes right into the poem. Tonight the sky breathes wet sacks into riot. Thunder binds and returns like a bird cage opened. Let me begin again. I will see what will let me see. Night washing the dishes. So in February, I had a new book come out, a book I've been working on and actually been hiding away for a long while. It's called Is Enough, and it tracks my father's plummeting into dementia. I'm not going to read any of those poems exactly, but here are a couple of poems from the book. This one is called Fortune. I keep lists of plants and lists of the best of everything else. Lipsticks and Latvian streets and thrift stores at every distance. I continue to think it would be good to do some reliable fleeing. I get ahead of myself, seeking goodness at each next corner. In September, I saw some of the space on the surface of a desert, a doll's house of sedums, an abacus of seedlings. I smelled the familiar artemisia, the vertigo of the bleeding heart. We've lived in the same house for a score, but took out peas and foxgloves, put in small greening truth, particulate amidst rust. We've built many gardens, and yesterday crouched down to see what the plants have done since the last time we crouched or dropped water on them. And then we went to Tim's, and he made curry, and we hovered over old memories, sucking the nectar out of them, trying to remember if they were true or right. Full, we sat on the couch that came with his tiny place, and Tim showed us a ballet he had cued on his screen. 40 dancers skinned to transparencies, bellying from hushed sounds to bending. Tim had been away 14 years, lived in Milwaukee near his mother. He still has a globe of white hair. Moment passes moment to make a lifetime. I can no longer list the many people I've been, all the proportion and practice, breath and riddle worn soft. It's a new day. We might get rain. I dress in a shirt the color of sky and other pale traces. I'll go outside. The earth is full of surprises. Dad once planted marigolds. So there's a poem in the book from a project I did at Denver Botanic Gardens in the second winter of COVID. Remember that? It was kind of horrible. Everyone was scared and miserable, and it was winter. And I did a project for the gardens, which are fantastic, where I was trying to find optimism. And it was difficult at that time. And so I started with, I started with a yellow legal pad and the names of plants on the top of, I don't know, 13 pages or 15 pages. And I just sat there and I looked at these blank sheets of paper with these titles for a long time and did not much else. And then finally I started. This one has 4 plants that have tremendous names, names that seem deserving of a good poem. Bladderpod, house leek, prickly thrift, dragonhead. I came to the garden to learn a particular name. Safe harbor, the way's water chuckled, inflating like invisible diamonds. I came to hear the running of a small bird. Enough, even that single gibbering prayer. Then the light against pine bark. I took photos of underneath because I wanted to see what slipped between rocks. The mounds and drifts, the seeds proud to empty. Safe, next year's dispatch. I could not think more than silver leaf curl and fritillary cloud, dappled beginnings. All this landscape, unlike, and at the same time exactly feeling the world. All the plurals and soft spells growing roots in each other. When the weather rocked, I listened to the ordinary and saw it overflow. And I want to read one last poem. It's a love poem. It's a love poem to a person and a love poem to the part of the country, the high desert, where I've made my home for a bunch of decades, a place I truly love. And before I read, I just want to thank Simmons for terrain.org, everything that it is, and for this evening, which I knew was going to brighten a day that was not perfect at the beginning. So thank you. The poem is called Love Loves. We've traveled to a field with its inner servings of sand and wolves. The sand is owned and never appears on a map because the owners want its hard, tender, invisible. The space trembles and is built up and seems eliminated. It has come to rest, and I am in a hurry to listen. Nothing might be more fragile than smearing infinity around and waiting dutiful centuries. Sun hovers every high and low, posing and pointing as necessity. Eros, I once believed, could make me an incredible promise. Sincere, I took it. Of course, I also learned no love loves a stain. In confidence, we discussed it. Previously, we hid unattended until finally our settlement of us decided to stay. To clarify, to celebrate, we canopy in the desert where the sun singing sand on a loop becomes sense-making. We are dirty and casual, the day getting rich quick on distance, making a note about a note, and whatever he says, whatever I forgot to unknot, I tend to sift through the waning light. It's another summer bending. It is nearly 30 years. There's a room here for washing one's feet. I don't know if you need to be clean. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, for those gorgeous poems. All right. Sean Hill is the author of mixed genre collection The Negroes Send Their Love and the poetry collections Dangerous Goods and Blood Ties and Brown Liquor. A widely published poet, he has also received numerous awards, including fellowships from the Cave Canem Foundation, Stanford University, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Sean lives in southwestern Montana with his family and is an associate professor of creative writing at the University of Montana. Sean, will you read to us?
Yes, Simmons, thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Derek. That was really so wonderful and generous. Thank you, CMarie, for that wonderful statement, that opening. Um, Thank you all for being here. Yeah, thank you, Terrain, for inviting me into this community, being a part of this thing. Um, I'll read a couple of poems, a few poems from The Negroes Send Their Love. This book has sort of this wide temporal scope. It goes from just before the Civil War till 400 years into the future, into the 25th century. Um, in the middle of all that is my life. Um, and I'm going to read some poems about uh, my son and living in Montana. One Saturday morning in Carmel. This poem is not about living in Montana because that hadn't happened yet in the book. This poem is about hanging out in Carmel when I was living in Fairbanks, Alaska. One Saturday morning in Carmel. It was spring in Carmel. There were birds. It always feels like spring in Carmel. It still felt like deep winter back home in Fairbanks. There were bush tits and banded pigeons, acorn woodpeckers, western scrub jays and the brown creeper, black phoebes, spotted and California towhees, a Townsend's warbler, and others. A gull floated high overhead. I stood on the patio in the least layers I'd worn in months. I held you, arms wrapped on my right arm, sorry, legs wrapped on my right arm. Between my wrist and elbow, your seat. You'd only recently begun pointing out the living room window at trucks and cars moving along the hard-packed snow on the road back home. There were birds, a whole new community for you, and the American crow on the wire was the largest, and so I thought the easiest for your young eyes to perceive. So I pointed up at it, and you pointed with me, with what was surely my hand when I was your age. But your eyes didn't follow our fingers. They looked to me and out and inward, like when we listened to music in the kitchen back home in Fairbanks, with our waving hands in the air. But on the patio, there was no music, save birdsong. I pulled my hand back and jabbed it at the crow, and we're doing an old disco move. I leaned back with you in my arm and watched your eyes roll down in your head to stay level with the horizon. After a couple of tries, the crow cawed and ruffled its feathers at us, and you discovered it. Oh, your emphatic finger, showing me that there was a crow on the wire, acknowledging that bird and then others. You revealed not what I knew, that there were birds one Saturday morning in Carmel, but made me feel, again, how the world opens before a curious body, our bodies. There's a series of poems in the book that are father and son poems, fathers speaking to sons, sons and fathers speaking about things. Um, and this one is titled A Father Speaks to His Son About Reckless Behavior. Son, I've seen the spoils of recklessness and come to understand all we have are these breaths we take to make of them what we will to our deaths. All I desire to share with you, one way to sum up my life. There's so much I've wanted to show my father. These wide western skies under which we might sit and share the awe of our smallness. These days I'm daunted by what we've not done. These days I'm haunted by the future and shook by the past, which attests to some pillaging the world, leaving mere crumbs for others in an act of malice or breathtaking recklessness. I've seen the spoils of recklessness, son, and come to know the disregard for those beneath being taunted. We need soon to lay low our Goliaths, to honor the fact that all we have are the breaths of our lives. Defy what collides with the sacred. This next poem was uh, written at invitation from Christopher Condrick for his anthology, The Creature Needs. He sent me some articles, some scientific articles to sort of write from. And the one I chose with it was the American pika. So this poem is about the pika, that little cute little creature. The American pika. Like us, pikas spend their days at the work of life. They wake to graze and go about haying and try to keep from being prey. Foxes, bobcats, coyotes, eagles, hawks, weasels. So many get by eating these rabbit kin with their big, round teddy bear ears. Pikas prefer, when it's no warmer than 78 degrees or so, to forage for grasses, to make haystack caches. For the winter, they'll stay awake through. And so they must contend with trying to stay comfortable enough to work in this rising heat, trying to find the perfect spot to thermal regulate, stay comfortable. They tuck down in the piles of rock at the base of cliffs, Talus. The Pika's Talus homes sit in the high rocky slopes of these western mountains that I also call home, charmed as I am by their enchantment. My family's house is a large, precisely arranged pile of Victorian bricks built in 1893 that has stayed cool so far these summers since. Some folks I love feel 76 degrees is the perfect temperature for living. At the edge of this town are encampments of people trying to get by. Our pile of bricks has been settling for the last century and a quarter, and so is comfy so far for us, its latest residents. How do unhoused folks settle? I mean, feel settled. The houseless, like us all, spend their days at the work of life and trying to keep cool in this heat, like my family under our high ceilings, like the pika seeking the cool deeper in the talus. I wonder if we all can keep from losing our home, can keep from being the prey of those folks who make hay in this latest and perhaps last season. Read one more. Um, this one was also a poem written at invitation. The folks at the Natural Resources Defense Council was like, "Hey, you want to try to write a poem that's a hopeful climate change poem?" And I was like, "That sounds like a cool challenge. I'll try it." And this is the best I could do. Imagine we're ancestors dreaming, and suppose the seas rose. What if megafires? I mean, what if blossoms come too early, blooming before the last frost? So starvation's looming for the bees looking for petals to slide between. Suppose 100-year drought for our loves, and bomb cyclones and hurricanes for what's held in a palm, and all our conveniences are modern balms, or what we take to be necessities, things assuming roles as central as the heart and our beloveds as we lean away from our relations with human and non-human beings, ones that if tended could blossom. Too early blooming drives famished bears to scavenge alleys for trash alms before they can retire to dens under fur and flat blankets, warm. Imagine massacres, or holding folks as property, presuming a narrow definition of worthy relations to screen others out, the point of who is kin drawn keen. Suppose seas of change rose once and can again. I mean, suppose heart and imagination, hope in our time to remedy questions or statements as dooming as, what if blossoms come too early, blooming? Suppose 100-year drought for our loves and balms. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean, for those powerful poems. And we're going to get into some Q&A here, but before we do, let's give, please, a big round of applause for our readers this evening, CMarie Fuhrman and Derek Sheffield and Lauren Camp and Sean Hill. What an amazing way to celebrate, honor Earth Day and this land and landscape that we so love. And I just want to say real quickly, I saw a comment from Benjamin Green in the chat, and he wrote, I think joy, love, kinship. And yeah, that's what we've talked about in home too, I feel like this evening. So some folks may be slipping away, but before they do, I wanted to again give everybody a big round of applause for these amazing readings. And then let us open it up to Q&A. I know that that some folks may need to take off, and that's okay. But let's see what questions we have. You've definitely wooed some people, Sean, with your voice. So you'll have to stick around and sing karaoke with us, the post-reading karaoke. I may have forgotten to mention that actually, but um, yeah. Are we seeing any questions out there? No questions from folks. We can unmute if we want. Well, so let me ask a question then. And going back to sort of that statement from Ben on love and kinship and joy, and I know it's a question we think about a lot as writers and readers, but let's turn to the people of the landscape and how do you write your love for the people of our landscape? And I mean in your family, in your 150-year-old Victorian bricks or otherwise. What is the what do we need to do to write that as, I guess, maybe a way to write about what's going on in the world? I'll leave it at that. It's a big question, I know. Um, Thoughts? Is that too vague a question?
I'm happy to go out on a limb for you, Simmons, because I appreciate that you came up with a question, and I'm not sure that I'm going to answer it in the right way, but I'll step out on the limb for you. It's so easy, I think, to dismiss humans and dismiss humans as a problem, and to think that the earth would be happier or better off without humans. In fact, we hear that the earth could survive without us. But I love to think that that's not true, because I think of Indigenous people everywhere today, Indigenous people thousands of years ago. Today, I drove by a site 16,000 years old where Native people were camped here in Idaho. And I think about those people and many people like many of you here tonight who celebrate. And I think that the earth was created for us to celebrate in the way that we would dance and sing and look at stars and dress up as animals. And the way that the earth thrives is through this attention, right? We see things happening now that feel like a dying back. And I think that's because our attention is on these things and other devices. And we've lost, say, for poets and artists and a lot of folks that are here tonight, naturalists and biologists and ecologists out there delighting in many of the things we heard tonight. So when I write about people, I write about that delight. And I don't want us to forget the incredible role that human beings play in this earth and the retelling of this earth and the creation of earth and of story, and how that can happen again, how we can still be healed and can do healing through that attention. So as much as it maybe feels good to say if people weren't here, the earth would survive, I think the earth would be lonely, as maybe it is right now, and hungry for our attention and our intentions as a way to start.
Thank you. Derek, Lauren, Sean?
I'm just musing on what CMarie gave us there. I so appreciate, I continue to learn from her as I've done for years as we were working on Cascadia Field Guide. So this is just the sound of me musing.
with a new friend on your lap?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it and leave it. Because I am I yeah, I think that this idea that I don't think it cares one way or another necessarily. Um, that we should care about it and all the other beings around us. But I like the idea that it likes us here if we could behave.
I don't really have anything more to add except from the perspective of looking through the darkness or considering not just the earth, but the universe. I like that holding in my body and in my, I don't know, in my being, that sense of perspective of not that we don't belong here or that we are ruining things. Sure, some of us are. Probably no one here, but more so that we are part of a much grander whole and a much bigger, longer, older history. And I like that perspective.
Great. Thank you. I see there is one question by Laura Rollins, but I'm going to condense it. And I think we'll probably end with this question since we're getting near the end of time. But the question was, what is your inspiration behind poetry? Let me narrow that because that's a pretty broad one too, to say, what is one recent surprising thing that has inspired your writing? Whether it's poetry or prose, one thing that you didn't expect that has inspired it as of late. And this time, Derek, I'm not going to let you off the hook.
Oh God. Well, I haven't. They're surprises. Wow. Let's see.
Delights, joys, you name it.
Well, let me just say this. When I thought about, so I like thinking about the work of poetry. It's not always words on paper, you know. It's a way of being in the world. And so in doing this poet laureate work, I hadn't thought about going into prisons and working with inmates. And I've done that twice now, and then I'm headed into a youth correctional center next month. And that has been such a moving experience. And as soon as I stepped into the room with these brothers and sisters of ours and seeing their faces, and like the only two things that made sense to me were kindness and poetry. And that's what I wanted to share. And then the value, the just how beautiful it is to have a gift so well received this in this deprivation of culture that are the prisons, these men and women were so grateful to and ready to receive the gifts of poetry. And I recently heard from one fella from this maximum security and institution who got a letter to me through the channels that said he hasn't stopped writing poems since I had come by. And mostly I just said, here's some Etheridge Knight, let me tell you about his story. And it's just like I knew what poems, the poems did the heavy lifting. And yeah, it's that has been a really powerful surprise for me.
Yeah, that's a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
I'll say something. I've been focused on undervalued women scientists in history. Uh, if you had told a much younger me that this would have been a place I would start researching and being curious about, I would have said, that's impossible. Science is not my forte, but that it has been very, very interesting to look through poetry, through lines and phrases and sort of line breaks, even at what any of these women have done. None of them that I have written about are still alive, and that was part of my focus. And that's been really fun and very, very hard.
Thank you. Sean?
Mm, The Negroes Send Their Love came out March 3rd. It didn't go off to the printers till right before Thanksgiving, and I was kind of still working on it right up until they were like, we need to send it to the printer. Um, Now I'm inspired by a road trip, a camping road trip from Montana out to Tahoe that I took with my family last year, to write about just travel and seeing the world. Um, we 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 stopped at Angel Lake State Park, outside of Wells, and we stopped at Great Basin, and we spent a week in Lake Tahoe, and I got to sort of be out and see things. And um, part of what I'm thinking about, though, when I'm writing my way into is um, thinking about access and who gets access to things, and how that trip that I took with my family and that my wife took with her family when she was younger was not a trip that my parents would have been able to take when they were young.
Yeah, thank you. CMarie?
Really want to say something profound, but I have to tell the truth. I have read 30 romantasy books so far this year, 30. And I feel like they have made my poetry so much better. And I'm not going to try to dissect that, why that is, or why, or explain why I've been reading romantasy, but I will, because I'm writing a holiday eco romance, because it's a whole untapped group of people. One of the largest selling genres, but also I want to see people like me in that genre. So I've been writing to that. But ever since I started just reading these romantasies and realizing how much of poetry can still remain in this like fantastic world, it's allowed my mind to open up, to play, to be less serious, and really increase my romantic life. I might have to add that as well since Caleb's not here. So there you go. The trick in freeing up your writer's block might be 30 romantasy novels. And I'm happy, between Paisley Rectal and I, we are happy to recommend at least 60 to you.
That is awesome. And I must say, not where I expected this reading to conclude, but yet we love our Earth in many ways, and so and beyond, of course, the universe as well. That seems I think, therefore, a fitting way to end the reading this evening. So please join me again in thanking CMarie and Derek and Lauren and Sean, who just had to leave as well a little bit early to pick up his son. So thank you all for really a wonderful, generous, beautiful, surprising, delightful, joyous reading this evening. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening and an amazing week, and keep up the creative resistance. Thank you.